What changed wasn't motivation, it was honesty.
Yeah, I think the rock bottom was walking out of Panera Bread and not able to walk because my legs had ballooned and I had to sit down in front of a T-Mobile store and say, I can't walk. Can't do this anymore. And I had to dial 911. Then I figured weight got me. Like I was never really cured. I never really dealt with my emotions. I was able to go on a great diet, get a great program going, but ultimately I never handled the mental issues. I wanted to lie, but I had the bag with me and then they were telling me that, oh, it could be acute heart failure, it could be these things, and I'm freaking out.
You said that your change started with honesty and not motivation. Hi, and welcome back to another episode and another season of the Woman Witness podcast on the Woman Witness TV network. I'm your host, Lia Fortier. Here on this platform, we bring to you voices of dynamic women that are out there making a positive impact in their lives, in their family, and the community around them. Women of faith, women of resilience, women who have battled through something, and they are bold enough, strong enough to turn around, grab the hand of another sister, and be a witness. Today, we are joined by a special guest, Miss UniQue Webster. She is a published author, a marketing strategist focused on storytelling, audience growth, and purpose-driven impact. But this conversation goes beyond business. Today, UniQue opens up about her unique experience with food addiction, binge eating, and cycles of denial and self-sabotage. At her lowest point, she weighed 363 pounds and faced serious health risks. What changed wasn't motivation, it was honesty. Since then, she's lost over 170 pounds and she has rebuilt her mindset, discipline, and identity. So this is a real conversation. I want us all to lean in. I know that you will be blessed by this conversation because I know I will as well. We're going to be talking about breaking patterns, choosing truth, and doing the work that makes the change in your life. I want you all to help me welcome my guest today, Miss UniQue Webster. Hey, UniQue, welcome to the Well. How are you today?
I'm doing wonderful. Thank you so much for having me. It's been quite the journey. Quite the journey.
I am in awe, like just mouth open. I'm so just curious and I cannot wait to get into your story, to go from 363 to lost over 170 pounds. And you created a strategy to come back and teach others how to do it. Okay, let me don't get ahead of myself. Let me stop.
No, it's good.
No, can I say this? I will say this. I think so often, sometimes people, they lose the weight. Honey, you can't tell them nothing. And they don't come back to help other people get it off and keep it off. So
Right.
I know this is going to be a conversation. I don't care if anybody else is blessed by it, but I know I will be. So I can't wait to get into it. I just had to say that. I know that this conversation, as I said, is going to bless so many people. So let me just ask you to take us back to where things really begin to turn for you. What was that turning point? What did your typical day look like back then?
So one, I'm still getting used to the weight loss. So the time that I had submitted the request to be on the show, I've lost an additional 10 pounds. And so I'm still kind of in my journey. I'm 5'11". I'm at 170, and it's just it's I lost more weight than I weigh. So
Wow.
and this all happened within a matter of like 16, 17 months. So one thing that I am trying to do is really adjust to my everyday life. So at 363, my life was very different. I was actually homeless at the time. I did not have a steady place of home, a steady job. I had lost my job. I had went through 2 jobs in marketing, and during that time, they had laid off the whole department without warning. So it was like, oh, we're going to be scaling down, but your job is safe. I've kind of struggled with weight before, but never at that size. And
Mm.
so I was in hotel to hotel. It got to a point where I had nowhere to go. I had to leave all of my belongings at the hotel and sleep outside. It was the worst experience of my life. Thank God for Panera Bread. I was able to, try to pick up work there. I was so, I pretty this is where the self-sabotage comes in because I could have reached out probably to family and friends, and these for a stable roof over my head.
Mm.
But because I had gotten so big, I was so embarrassed and I hid from everyone. I hid from my family. They were worried. They didn't know what was going on.
Now, you said you struggled with weight before. Did it all happen gradually, or was it like something that, you struggled with in your youth, or maybe after kids, or when did that turning point happen?
Well, it was really in my youth. I was abandoned by my biological mother. So
Mm.
I always had like some emotional issues. My father did an amazing job raising me, but it's nothing like having, a mom's
Yeah.
love. And
Yeah.
so understanding that your mother had a child before you and kids after you when you were younger, you don't really understand the scope of it, right? And so she was
Got it.
just 16. So I didn't realize how even young she was at the
Mm.
time. But so I've always had a weird relationship with food where it became my comfort.
Got it.
And my sisters didn't have that problem. My brother didn't have that problem. And so there was really no one I felt comfortable really talking to about the addiction. So I was on every diet there was. I was always a big girl as far as height is concerned. So my dad tried to put me into sports. I wasn't really a
Yeah.
sports fan, like the face, and I wasn't good at it at that. So I just kind I just kind of didn't know where to turn. I was just an overgrown size kid that was trying to find my way.
Yeah.
And my way really was finding my way into work. So I grew up in the visual and performing arts, mostly in video production and producing and writing. And so that's where I found my aspirations. It was kind of,
Yeah.
aside from food, that was really my outlet. I really
Yeah.
got to just write and create stories and just find my voice. And so that's really what I focused on. And I would say that up until middle school, I had an okay childhood, but middle school was
Yeah.
really rough. Kids
Yeah.
are
Yeah.
kids
They were
are
jealous. They were jealous. 5'11". Look. Um
They
let me
didn't know
ask
anything.
you.
I don't. It's funny because I was on my Facebook page and one of the guys he used to pick on me. He's like, "Hey, you look gorgeous now." Basically
Yeah.
apologizing. I'm like, I don't hold you to that. We were all kids. Kids will be
Yeah.
kids. It was
Yeah.
a different time. It definitely
Yeah.
fueled fire to make me focus and be a little bit more determined to succeed and things like that. But I don't hold them
You don't hold
against
it against.
them because they're kids. We're all kids.
Yes. Yes. No, I get it. Let me ask you now, when you say food addiction,
Mhm.
what did that actually look like in your life? Like, not just a label, but like the behavior. What were you doing, or what were you telling yourself during this time while it was happening? Like, it was, let me don't answer.
Yeah. So, I mean, I could be very honest about some of the experiences with the food addiction that I think that a lot of people are embarrassed by. So, it would look like trying to present yourself as a healthy eater, right? So, you would go through all of these chains of activities. So, for instance, I might go to Panera Bread, order two meals. The first meal is healthy, a salad,
Mhm.
some dressing, light dressing, chicken, whatever. The second meal bite might actually be the meal that I really want, which could be, their full sandwich with all the works. And I would literally, if I was going through a drive-through, I would be fake on the phone, like, "Oh, you want the salad? Oh, you want a sandwich? Oh, okay, hold on one second. Oh, she wants the sandwich, chips too, girl. She's greedy. Add some chips. All of this whole theatric, right? Thinking that the person is judging me on buying both of those meals. Or if I would go into the store, I would actually, one second, oh, she wants the, cookie with all the works. She's greedy. You know what I mean? It's like when it's me. And then if I was going to someone's house, I would eat all the things that I thought I would be judged on in the car. So I would eat the cookie, the sandwich. And then when I would go to eat the salad meal with them, they would say, I just don't understand how you're overweight. Like, you eat so healthy. So that became a practice, where it was kind of a ritual to do every day. And so, and many of times, just lying in bed, and if you get bad news, just eating
Mm.
until you're sick. When I look back and reflect upon it, it feels foreign to me because it's like, well, why didn't I just try to solve the issue? But I think people don't look at food addiction in the way that they look at drug addiction or alcoholism. And I think it should be looked at that way because it is obviously very detrimental to not just your health, your physical, but mental as well. And so those are things that, you would think to do just because you think people are judging you, just because you think people are aware of your addiction, when in fact they probably, they obviously see that you're overweight, but they don't relate it to food addiction. A lot of people don't understand what that is.
Yeah. Yeah, no, everything that you said, I'm sure I know I can relate to, or and people can
Mhm.
relate to as well. The things that we hide behind and hide behind, and we're more concerned about what society is saying,
Right.
and how that can become habitual. Let me ask you, I want to talk about maybe when you hit rock bottom. What was the real rock bottom for you? And not the version that most people post about, but like truly the moment where you made yourself and you looked at yourself in the mirror and you just felt just uncomfortable.
Yeah, I think the rock bottom was walking out of Panera Bread and not able to walk because my legs had ballooned, and I had to sit down in front of a T-Mobile store and say, "I can't walk, can't do this anymore," and I had to dial 911. And at the time, I had a boyfriend, and he hadn't even known what I was going through at all for a whole year. I actually just opened up about my story to him, and he would talk to me, and I would be like making up stories, and I'm here, I'm there, and it's like, well, when can I come see you, and when can we do this? And it's like, oh, not right now, and I'm here, I'm there, and I didn't understand that it was just like in my mind, I created this world that no one really would support me and no one really loved me because I didn't love myself. Um, and so sitting there waiting for the medics to come and trying to like fix my clothes up to so they wouldn't know I was homeless, I didn't have a place to stay, and immediately they were extremely. I wanted to lie, but I had the bag with, and so I just say, yeah, and they were telling me that, oh, it could be acute heart failure, it could be these things. And I'm because I've never been like,
Had heard those words.
yeah, ever. And so I ended up telling my boyfriend at the time, like, oh, well, he's still my boyfriend. I told my boyfriend at that time that I was experiencing a spider bite and it caused my leg to swell up and I had to go to the hospital. But I realized it was serious. And I don't know if this is standard protocol, but the nurse came in and she's like, "Do you have a will?" And oh yeah, she's face. And I'm like, "What?" And she's like, "Oh, it's just standard. We just ask everyone." And I'm like, I don't ever remember being asked that question. So, long story short, I was hospitalized for about 3 or 4 days. Everyone at the hospital at Atrium, it's in North Carolina, was extremely helpful to me. So much that I was even suspicious about that. I was like, why are they so kind to me? Are they going to harvest my organs? Like, what's going on? Am I about to die? I was just all over the place. And I think after taking photos, just looking back, like, why did I allow myself to get this way? um how did I end up
Yeah.
here? Like, is this how my life's going to end? And
Yeah.
I didn't blame anybody but myself because I realized I had a great at that time. I was like, I had a great run. I was able to live
Mm.
out the dreams that I wanted to live out, but weight got me. When I first lost weight, like I said, I wasn't as big as I got, but I felt like I can achieve anything. And so after achieving the first go around of weight loss, then I figured weight got me. Like, I was never really cured. I never really dealt with my emotions. I was able to go on a great diet, get a great
Yeah.
program going, but ultimately I never handled the mental issues. behind it. I didn't handle the food addiction.
That's good. That's what
Mhm.
that was going to be my next question. What was your mental, and what was your mental mentality, or what were you thinking when you were at your absolute heaviest?
Mhm.
As far as energy, mobility, self-talk, the
Mhm.
relationship. What picture did you paint for yourself?
Well, the picture I painted for the world was that I was okay. I was just, the picture that I painted for others um, was, I was fine. I was just very busy. Um, at one point, I tried to push my boyfriend away, but he was gung ho on sticking. Like, what's going on? I'm suspecting things. You don't want to, because he lives in another state, so you don't want to meet a visit to the point where he would come and visit me, and I would not be in those states. I would tell him I was in New York, working, and
Ooh.
he went to New
Mm,
York to surprise me, and I wasn't
mm,
there. He went to
mm,
DC multiple times, and I was actually in Charlotte. So creating a
mhm,
lie and hurting him in the process
mm.
because I was hurt and not intentionally wanting to hurt him, but not wanting to bring him in or to see what I've done to myself. You know how I've let myself go, and the weight loss happened. I want to say, I mean, the weight gain happened in a matter of a year. It was just constant.
Oh, I was
Yeah,
okay.
it was rapid because it went from caring about what I ate to not caring at all and
So in essence,
stuffing.
you were upset with yourself, Unique, is what you're
Yes.
saying. You were just
Mhm.
embarrassed, ashamed,
Mhm.
mentally. Yeah, okay, got it,
Mhm.
got it.
Yeah. I was shameful. I was embarrassed. You know, there was a night where I used to be on panels and things like that online speaking and
Mm,
talking about different topics and things and literally outside. And I remember a guy coming up and handing me money and he's like,
mm,
you should be out here. Like what's going on? Like why are you out here? And um I'm like, I'm just here just waiting on someone, and it's almost like again creating this false
got it,
illusion. He gave me his number, like, hey, just give me a call. Like I'm trying to figure out, you're
right,
looking for work, whatever. But I carried on in my head as if everything was okay.
got it.
And that I was going to get out of this. And there was a moment where I was super frustrated. I think I had to
Mm,
walk like a mile because I didn't have any money at the time. And I had like I signed into like a Groupon, and I was like, I wonder if I had credits on Groupon or something. And I think I had a pizza. And so I walked
mhm,
to go get the pizza to get something to eat that day. And then I do remember really having a mental breakdown. And that's
mm,
where I said, God, what, like, I'm trying to be grateful. I'm
yeah,
trying to, I'm trying. But this morning I woke up to rain just hitting my face. I woke up to sitting in the back of a, Chinese food place in a
mm,
chair. And this is what my life has come to. I need help. Like, what am I supposed to do? And so I remember getting a call from a women's shelter, and they had accepted my application. Well, they wanted me to fill out the application, then they had accepted the application. And this was around Thanksgiving of 2024. And I got accepted, was able to move my things in. And I think that was more of a turning point too for me, where I was just grateful. I was, basically that experience, I want to say for a month of just being displaced and not having anything, it really taught me how everything that I have in my life, not material things, but everything, just being able to breathe, be able to speak, really looking at my family and friends and my support group and not taking anyone for granted.
Now, Unique, you said that you push everyone away during that
Mhm.
time, and you were now in a different state at this moment?
Yes, yes.
Was there ever a moment where you said, I need to call my dad. Like, I don't care what how hurtful this is. I want to call him. Did you ever have to fight back those moments?
To call my boyfriend,
No, your dad, your
my
your
dad.
your family that you, yeah, that you
No,
left behind
I
during this
I
time.
never. Um, I think I was for a long time. I don't struggle with it now, but I always looked for validation from my father, and like, you know, it was important for me to always be successful in his eyes. And that came from being the oldest sister, taking care of my family, taking care
Yeah.
of my sisters. And this would be a disappointment. That's what I thought. Yeah, that's what I thought. So he was going to be the last that I would always just want to tell him the story of how I survived and made it, and see what you've
Mhm.
done. You created a soldier, you created a person who has perseverance and determination. And it was like, he would have been the last on the list to call. Not that he would be last to help me, he actually would have been the first, but
Right.
I always sought out validation and wanted to be successful in his eyes. That's how I felt we connected and
Yeah.
related. And I'm pretty sure, he would be probably sad to hear that, because he doesn't look
Yeah.
at it that way. I'm his daughter. He loves
Yeah.
me regardless.
Looking back at it now, would you have called him sooner? Yeah. Okay.
Um, I think I would have called. I don't know. I'm gonna be honest. I don't. I'm still healing from the way that I seek that validation from him.
Got you.
So I
Yeah.
think, at this point, I have to say I would have called someone else sooner
Got it.
versus
Got it.
him. Yeah.
And that's fair, especially when you recognize that there is a healing that needs to be done there, and that's
Mhm.
completely fair. I can totally
Mhm.
relate to that. Let me ask you, what lies did you? Oh my goodness, excuse me. What lies did you tell yourself to continue this cycle, to keep it going? Was it, I'll
Mhm.
start tomorrow, or this is going to be the last time, or I'm going to pull myself up, or what lies did you tell yourself to stay in that cycle?
So it's interesting because I'm not sure if I think I was a realist to myself. I think I just curated stories to tell other people. And mostly it was really my boyfriend, because at the time I had isolated everyone but him, because he was very determined. He just wouldn't stop. I would think I would have changed my number. He went to look for me. He went to send the
Mm.
police at one point. It was, the man loves me down, and I
Ooh.
love him and appreciate him. But I don't know if I lied to myself per se, versus understanding, like, this might be it. Like this, I didn't know how I would be able to lose the weight. It was like, I've done it before. Know I can do it, but it's beyond just the weight loss. It's a sickness that I have to grab hold on. I have to figure out a way to deal with this addiction.
So pretty much you told yourself, you know what? This is really it. This is all I can do. And I'm doing my best every day. So that's what kind of kept you in the cycle, but you didn't give up.
No, no.
You at least okay, can I, if I'm understanding you correctly, you knew what you were doing, but you just didn't see a way out.
Yeah, the addiction was so bad that I
Yeah.
didn't see a way out. It's
Got it.
just like, after being in the hospitalized, you know, I knew that I had to make a change relatively quickly, because I felt like, I was close to 400 pounds. No, everyone in the hospital treated me very kindly. And the only thing that was like, no one mentioned my weight. No one said, hey, that talk that I used to have with my doctors when I was at the highest, like 200 and something. But at 363, no one said, hey, look, like, this is a really serious moment, blah, blah, blah. No, they were very, very kind, but I never received that talk. And so, only thing that came through was the, like, do you have a will? And that was like,
Breaks my heart.
and it's like, oh, we always ask everyone that. I'm like, I've never been asked that. So, um,
Looking back at it, if you had a friend or you knew somebody, would you want them, the doctors or somebody in there, to have that conversation with them? Of course, in a healthy way.
About if I was at my last end, like
Or
if it,
if you knew someone who is and they were in the hospital, instead of saying, "Hey, do you have a will?" Talk to me, tell me where I'm at. Tell me your thoughts.
yeah, I think so. I would have definitely, my niece, my oldest niece, I did reach out to her to tell her. I didn't tell her that everything that was going on, but I told her to contact people. I gave her after the nurse had said that I had said, hey, here's a list of people. If you can contact them, let them know I am in the hospital. I was honest with my family about the condition. So they,
Mm.
the cardiologist came in, they gave me an echo on the heart, they did all types of tests. And I was very honest with my family about the testing. And so where we were with that, because I didn't want I didn't want people to believe why I disappeared, their versions of it. I wanted them to at least know that it was maybe health related, right? Because if I was gonna die, they would have had to obviously see me and say, "Wow, this is." I don't know that they would have said that, but they would have saw that I've gotten that big, and it was the issues that I was going through. So I did call my oldest niece, Precious, and she reached out to everybody. I mean, I would have never, I was working with some clients, like doing some marketing flyers and strategy. And I was ghostwriting a book at the time for someone. And she contacted everyone and she let them know, you know, I gave them the directions, instructions, what to say. Meanwhile, I'm pretty sure it's going through her head, like, I haven't talked to you in like almost a year. Like, what's going on with you? And she had her own version of what she thought was going on, but she remained calm and reached out to everybody, and people reached out to me. To my surprise, I didn't really think people cared that much, and everyone reached out and wished me well. And so yeah, it was. I wouldn't have mind, the doctor reaching out to maybe my oldest niece or someone
Somebody.
like that for sure. Yeah, somebody. Yeah. Hmm.
Mm. Unique. Can I just pause real quick and just say thank you for being so vulnerable and telling your story. For me, I know I've been there. I know there's so many people who have been there. And we struggle with the truth of it all. We struggle with, uh, I'll I'll start later, or maybe this is not for me, or maybe this is just how I'm made. I feel like, especially in, I don't know about you, but in our community, we just big boned it, right? And we just don't really know the truth. I didn't find out the
Yeah.
truth until later. So that's why I
Hmm.
really want to say thank you for just being vulnerable and sharing. Yeah,
No, for sure, for sure.
let me ask you, you said that your change started with honesty and not motivation. You were a realist. You kept it real with yourself. So
Mhm.
what did that moment of honesty really sound like in your own head? I want to get to the turning point. I want to get to like
Mhm.
where you said, you know what, enough is enough. What was that
Yeah.
exact realization in that sentence that you said to yourself that you just couldn't ignore anymore?
So once I was approved to be in the shelter, the women's shelter,
Yeah.
they were really kind of forcing us to work anywhere. So that meant McDonald's, anywhere.
Mm,
And
mm,
I was like, I have a plan. Like, I don't want to work at McDonald's, and nothing to anybody that works at McDonald's, but I wanted to get back into my marketing and being the professional that I knew that I had worked my career up to be. And so I just formulated a plan, would um, reach out to, just kind of reach out to different companies, reach out to different people. And then I looked in the mirror and said, like, I had the same determination career wise, right? Like, I was like, I can get there. I got my spruced up my resume and I said, I need to put this much into my health and wellness.
mm,
So I talked to a nutritionist and I was like, I really want to get into health and wellness in some form or fashion, right? I want to lose weight because that was part of regaining my life back. It was a part of
mm,
my promise to God, right? And I said, God, if you just give me one more chance, I promise
mm,
you, I'm going to get this done, and I'm going to make sure that I don't backtrack, right? I just need support. I just need something. And the doctor had mentioned, like, oh, well, I guess GLP-1s were really hot. During, it still is. And had mentioned Wegovy to me. And I thought, oh, I don't know. And she said, well, we'll just use it as a jump start. You can jumpstart
What you
your
doing?
weight loss. And I did a bunch of research on it, and I said, okay, sure, right.
Yeah.
So I started taking it, and I'm going to be honest, it really did help for sure. Like with the, helping with the food noise is what they call it. And so the food noise basically is that when you're not even hungry, you just start like wanting food. Like, you can have chips and you'll want to eat the whole bag of chips, right? So it's like, you're not really hungry, you don't want the snack, it's just the food noise. So I started taking it, and I lost like my first 30 pounds with it. But the one thing I did notice, the downside to it, is that I didn't have energy, didn't want to move, didn't want to do anything. And
Mhm.
so I kind of prayed and said, look, because I saw all the other horror stories, like once you get off of it, all the weight's going to come back and this and that.
Yep.
And I said, I remember when I first lost weight, the doctor giving me Fentanyl, and I said, no, I'm not going to take it. And I didn't take it the first 4 months. Yeah, because, I remember seeing like Jennifer Hudson, and she had lost all her weight, and she was experiencing death with her, I think her mother died, or her nephew or something. It was something
Mm.
tragic. And I was like,
Mhm.
if she can focus on weight loss, then I can. And so I remember the first go
Mm.
around, I said, I'm going to not take it. And then when I lose the weight, I'm going to hand my doctor these pills back. And that's what I did. So with the Wegovy, I felt like I was a little bit cheating. But I felt like my mind state was so warped at the time that it was a great start. So I stopped, and my doctor was a little concerned, and I said, look, well, my nutritionist, and I said, I can assure you that after we have all these different calls, that I'm going to lose the weight. The one thing
Mm.
about me is I'm very determined. I'm
Get
very
in.
motivated. And now that I see that I had the jump start, I can do this on my own. I want to start working out. I want to start. When you tell me that I can't achieve something, it put the fire in me to want to achieve it. Like I love a
I'm gonna feel it.
challenge.
Yeah.
So when everyone's telling me, well, not everyone's telling me, I'm just reading on the internet that, oh, you're going to gain all the way back. And I actually did not, obviously, right? I have lost well over my intended goal. I'm within my BMI. And so the moment I realized I wanted to do this was after, again, being in the shelter, no, taking the same energy that I took to look for a job, and said, why can't I put this in myself? Why can't you have the same love that you want for a job for you, Unique? And so I knew I needed prayer, and I was like, God, and I had befriended two people at the time, Aisha and Miss Janie, and we were kind of a little circle in the circle, in the shelter, and they really supported me. And I was just honest. Oh, I learned honesty. I learned to be honest
Yeah.
about everything. Hey, if you guys see me eating this or that, stop me. Like, don't be kind about it. Tell me, like, stop, you know? And so when you have that kind of support system, coupled with love, you know, it was like, do it. And I worked at it like this was my only shot to life.
I love, love, love that. Can I, and you talk about, you touched a little bit on accountability, and I want to jump over to that. What does real accountability really look like when no one is watching? The private choices that you make, not just in public, but by yourself.
So it looks like self love. It looks like self kindness, love, keeping your promise to God, right? So I said, second chance, please. I'll do all the work. I'm not looking for any miracles. And so accountability looks like when you step on the scale, and you can't lie to yourself. You can't say, oh, I've only did this, I only had these many chips, I've only had that. No, especially your clothing, the inches, don't lie.
Hmm.
You can
Yes,
come
ma'am.
up with as many excuses to tell the world, but when you
We're not.
aren't losing the weight, you are still binging, when you are still by yourself, can you look yourself in the mirror and really say, I've done all I can, I've exhausted all my resources, I've kept my promise to God. And if you can't say that, you're not holding yourself accountable. And so that's really was just like, I remembered in the back of my mind, I told God, like, one more chance, please. I promise you I'll do this. And so I had to hold myself accountable.
I I love that. And you mentioned a couple of weight loss avenues that you were given,
Mhm,
and that you
mhm,
tried and you heard, you did your research. My question is, how did you rebuild your discipline without falling to the far extreme? You were like, I'm going to do this, I'm going to get the pills back, I'm done. How did you
mhm,
not
mhm.
go overboard?
Well, I was always afraid of like death by medication. I know that kind of sounds weird, but like taking medication and yeah, I was like, oh, I don't know. I don't want to like overdose on something or, die because it's just I used to just think of that. Like, wouldn't it be
Yeah, it's
horrible?
a good
Like if
thought.
I get
Yeah.
raped and died by like a fentanyl pill, you know what I mean? Like everything was perfect in your life. I you know, I was
That's good.
afraid of that pretty much, just kind of the whole pharmaceutical companies, medications, and things like that. So, but the determination, I used to call it my dad. I said determination and discipline is dad. And that was my real father. He was always determined and he instilled determination and discipline in me. And so I kind of tapped back into that. And I really, really, to be honest with you, like I was tired of hiding. I was like, I have a beautiful man that has stuck through all of this craziness, doesn't understand what's going on with this woman that he loves, and just having friends and family. And it's like I can't hide anymore. Like I'm sitting in a house and I'm hiding, And I got to a point, I do want to say when at the shelter, I stayed there for maybe 3 or 4 months. And I called my friend Christian, my best friend Christian. And she's
Hmm.
like, hey, how you doing? And I'm like, I'm good. And I don't know, something she must have picked up on. And she had asked me if I was staying in a shelter or something. And I said, I wanted to lie. And I said, I can't do this anymore because I was in the process of my weight loss. So I
Right.
was like, I am done with the lying. I have to share all this. Like, no. I said, yeah, I'm in a shelter. I told her, and she said, oh my gosh, why didn't you tell me? She said, come to Houston right now. I want you. She flew me out literally like the next day. She had some opportunities, some work for me to, some events and things like that. She had a beautiful house that she was in the process of selling, and she said you could stay here until sell the house. And she was in another location working, so I was able to use that time, which was from March 10th, 2025, until October 2025. So really, when I stepped on a scale in Houston, I was 303.
Wow.
When I came here to New Orleans, I was like 220 something. I had focused. I used that entire time working out every day, staying in meditation, prayer, um, being focused,
It's
was
a,
determined.
it's a
She
blessing.
gave me a safe house. Yeah, it was a huge blessing. She gave me a safe haven, a beautiful place, money coming in that that I could save and doing and getting back, slowly but surely getting back into the work that I needed to get back into, and finding a piece of myself.
That is so beautiful. God will send us
Mhm.
the most beautiful people at the right time. Let me ask you, at what point did you stop seeing yourself as the same person? Like, was it gradual? Was it a clear shift? Was it like, talk to us.
Which way, bigger or smaller?
Either way,
Okay.
I'll say when you really begin to see yourself in depth, like here I am again, or I'm back,
Ooh,
or
yeah, yeah.
you know,
That's um. I think what was interesting is I think I started seeing myself closer to now, right? But people were criticizing me, right? They were like, "Oh my gosh, your face looks so skinny, so sunken in," and I'm like, "But I'm uh, grateful. I look like me now." Um, I think honestly, we went to Macy's, and for me to put on a size 10, and it was like fine, and I'm like, this is not right. But this like, wow. So I'm like picking up another brand, same thing. And it's like, nice slacks that fit. Um, and I don't think people understand like flying, not needing an extender, seatbelt extender, just being like, oh,
Mm.
crossing my
Mm.
legs. Little things that
Mm.
I think that people
Yeah.
who probably never had a weight issue, they're like, what? I'm like, yeah, like
Yeah.
just being able to do that, being able to run and walk. I do 20,000 steps on most days. If I'm not traveling, I do 20,000 steps in between. I keep myself busy, walking and walk. I call it walking, jogging and walking intervals. I made it a part of my life. So I think once I started fitting into the clothing that I love, and I no longer have to think about covering roles or, oh, do I look good this way? And just dressing in clothing that I just enjoy
Yeah.
wearing. Yeah. So I will
Yeah.
say it happened closer to now rather than after I lost my first 100. I would say it was now. And the other way, I did used to look in the mirror because I didn't want to get used to how I looked. So I wasn't really a mirror looker when I got bigger because I was like, I don't want to, I know this shell is temporary. I just kept saying that it's temporary. But because the weight loss happened so quickly, I share with my boyfriend a lot. And he's like, you need to tell people because maybe other people go through that. Sometimes I wake up depressed because my brain still thinks at some point was still thinking I was overweight. So like I wouldn't realize that I'm not the 363-pound woman until I looked in the mirror and I go, oh, okay. It was such a weird, it's like I almost forgot I lost weight. And I don't know how many people struggle with it. Because a lot of
Yeah.
times these little nuances we don't really talk about. No one talks about
Correct.
it. Maintenance programs. Um, no one really shares that. And I'm like, but it happens to me and I feel like, oh, let me get these clothes on. And I'm like, and I look in the mirror and be like, oh,
Oh,
okay. Yeah,
hi.
you lost weight. I
Yeah.
forgot. Yeah, because it's so
Mm.
quickly, it's so rapidly that you don't really get to enjoy. You like I didn't get to really enjoy the journey because I was working so hard at it. Like just felt like a mission that I was on. So I want to be able to enjoy it. And I'm pretty sure after a year or two, I will myself would be used to this shell that I'm in, and I won't have those moments. But I feel amazing. I feel like even the job that I do. If I hear a no, it's just a slow yes. Nothing really takes you off the course anymore. If I get a no, if I get rejected, whatever the case may be, I just kind of feel like I'm on top of the world, and that I kept my promise to God, and that's always in the back of my mind that this was a second chance at life.
Mm.
And I am super grateful and grateful for the support system that I had and the
Mm.
friends and the family and my boyfriend that really stuck beside me. And even though some people are a little upset with me because they it was like you think that we're that shallow that they want to pour into you or protect you, and I had to remind them it's really not about, it's not what I thought really about you all. It's really a reflection of me at that point in time and how I felt. It was that was a sickness. It wasn't it had nothing to do with what you really were. Not, it's not like you would have rejected me. It was just really a sickness. It was what I was telling myself to cope. Yeah.
I love that. I love your honesty in that. There's so many beautiful things that you said, but if I can just highlight one, you said that, you know, you you said this is a shell. This is my second chance at life. And
Mhm.
I think there's just so much humility in that and knowing that, you know what, I did the work. I'm here now. I'm going to keep working at it. And a beautiful part about it is kind of like what your boyfriend said. By the way, we just love him right now. Okay. I'm pretty sure everyone listening right now just loves him. Okay. Um, but the fact that he said that you need to start telling people and
Mhm.
talking about the truth of food addiction, which
Mhm.
leads to my next question. I think that food addiction is a silent addiction, is an
Mhm.
overlooked addiction. So what kept you quiet? I'm sorry, what made you really start speaking right now? What made you get over this the shame, over the fear, over the judgment, and do something deeper and something different?
I think really, I believe honestly that if people are truly happy with themselves and
Yeah.
loving who they are, they exert that energy out. They pour into other people. And
Mhm.
miserable people keep misery going, right?
Yep.
And so I
Yep.
feel like the answer to everything in life is truly self appreciation, self love, self care. And I think
Mhm.
that people who really love themselves and really care about themselves, they don't hurt other people. And so I think, you know, in that manner, that if I can give people the answer, to what I think that human beings really struggle with, and it starts at the base, at the root, because I don't think that you can really truly love or appreciate the people that love and appreciate you if you don't do that for yourself. And so I couldn't really love my boyfriend and appreciate all the nuances about him until I love who I was, because I couldn't receive it. There's so many people out here that fake, and they fake with themselves. They'll dress themselves up. Um they'll do anything to really focus on them, because
Yeah.
it's hard, it's difficult. You have to really have that conversation. You have to really have that accountability. You have to really understand that a lot of us are born into circumstances and situations that we didn't bring on ourselves. I don't want to say but to be insensitive to that. However, I do think that if we continue to live in that misery, um it'll take us. It'll have a hold of us, and it'll
Yeah.
have us being addicted to the food, addicted to the alcohol, the drugs, the sex, the all
Mhm.
the, taboos in life, because we're struggling and we don't want to talk about it. The great thing I'm blessed about is that I feel like as long as I'm where I am now, I'm not shameful to talk about anything in my life. I wrote a book. I talked about, being abandoned. I talked about, and I wrote that book in 2018, 1981. It's a bunch of poems and letters and personal stories that I was going through, not just as an adult, but as a child. And there are some stories in there that I wrote at 13, just going through so much pain, and not understanding the pain.
Mhm.
But I think that I've been blessed to not be so much connected to the pain, if that makes sense. Like, I can
Yeah.
read the book and not like, oh my God, I went through so much. Oh, I have, I have a great ability to detach from that pain,
Yes.
detach from the past.
Mhm.
And I don't, sometimes people are unable to do that for whatever reason. And that the reasons that are justified as well. However, I do think that if we're able to practice the detachment from that pain, we can really start to appreciate who we are and love who we are. Because we all are going through stuff. We all have vices that we struggle with. No one's perfect. Um, and as much as people present that they have it all together, they don't, and because I'm aware that every human struggles with something, I love to get ahead of the story. So I don't want people to tell my story for me. I don't want anybody to say, "Oh, I remember her there and there," and then convoluting the story and the truth. I'd rather
Right.
get in front of it and use it to help others as much as I can.
Well, I admire that about you, Unique. I was seriously saying this from the beginning, from the first time you started telling your story. You do have the capacity and the ability to tell yourself something different, rewrite the narrative in your mind, and
Mhm.
I admire that about you. I picked up on that since we began this interview because I think it I know I can tell you this much, you were raised with a good mind, good head on your shoulders, and you don't allow the enemy to come in there and tell you otherwise about who you are. So I love that about
Mhm.
you. I really do. So, and I love the fact that you are taking your story and you're sharing it. Can I ask you, what would you say to some women right now who are listening and they're fearful of maybe taking the help, getting in touch with a nutritionist, getting a jump start? What would you say to some of those women right now who are listening?
I would really say, I'm going to be real. If you don't take the help, you're going to be where you are. And so
Mm.
where you are is not where you want to be. So the help, if you, what is the worst thing that could happen? I think we're so committed and we're fearful of the worst thing that can happen. So the
That's
worst
it.
thing I always thought could happen is that, oh, some enemy of mine could find my story or take a picture of me outside. But there are so many people who are compassionate in this world, and that's one thing I did learn because I didn't think people cared. And so people do care. Some people have a heart. I think we think that people don't, but people do care. And especially people that really love you, they care. And so if you want to stay where you're at, don't accept the help. But if you do want to move forward, you have to accept the help. I couldn't have done this. I have a list of people to consistently thank because I could not have done it without them. And I believe that God put these people in my life strategically to help me. And they've been
Mm.
a huge support system and a huge help. And so you'll be surprised. You'll really be surprised. So I think you should talk to the nutritionist. Think about it. There's some people who don't have access to a nutritionist at all. They would love to have access to a nutritionist. They would have loved to have Medicaid, the Medicare, the medical insurance, whatever you're on, to be able to have the medication or the guidance to help them. I think once you put the shame aside, and I had to put the shame aside. I really truly learned humility, and having to write a letter to my boyfriend because he was at his wits end towards the end. I'm like, baby, you want to throw this away? This is, and he doesn't even know. Like, I'm like, okay, let me just tell him everything. I have to be honest about everything. And so I had
Mm.
to learn humility and just putting the shame aside, putting the guilt,
Yeah.
um, putting all that to the side and saying, you know what, like I want this person in my life, um, and I needed help. And you once you start opening up, you don't know, the doors to me just floods in with opportunities, um, and just
Mm.
be grateful. And I
Yeah.
think that I've just learned to be grateful and humility and just say, hey, even if someone wants to take your story and try to throw it in your face, sometimes a lot of times that backfires on them, right? Your story gets into the hand of someone else, and then tenfold, you might get things that you need in tenfolds, or your story may help someone else that can relate and reach out to you. We've just heard so many success stories that it should be enough to at least give you a little bit of motivation or inspiration to say, I need the help. So I would
I'm ready.
say get the help.
Yeah, I love that. Let me ask you, what truth do you live by now that you once avoided?
Um, that I had a food addiction. Um, that was the truth that I hated to admit. But more or less, the food addiction came from not being able to properly handle my emotions from being abandoned. So having abandonment issues from a childhood, that was motherless, as far as my biological mom. And it was just kind of a snowball effect. So the truth that I live by now is that whenever there's traumas that arise, get help. Like that means if you need to stay in therapy to massage your mental health just as much as you're reaching your 20,000 steps a day, right? Because your mental health is just as important. And some of the things that were positive, being determined and disciplined, they do spill out sometimes in your love life. I become super independent, so learning
Mm.
to be a little more dependent, learning to be more trusting. So the truth or the motto that I live by is that I have to exercise my mental health just as well as I exercise my body. And so if any traumas arise, if anything that you feel that's uncomfortable,
That's true.
get the help you need. Don't turn to food. Don't turn to any alternative. Make sure that you get the help that you need by a professional, because anything else could lead you spiraling.
That's it. That's it. If I hear you correctly, you're saying we can do all the work for the physical, but if we don't tap into that mental, we can end up right back where we started.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
That's good.
And that's the truth. That's in realizing that there was an addiction there, right? Because
Yeah.
with drugs, if you were a drug addict, you wouldn't be around drugs. You wouldn't like associate
Hmm.
yourself around drugs. Same thing with alcoholics, right? They don't just and moderately say, "Oh, I'm gonna have some drinks here. I'm gonna have some." We have to. Those that are addicted to food have to approach that in the same manner. You can't play with it, right? You can't say, "Well, I'm gonna go off my lifestyle," because a lot of people still look at it as a diet. This is a lifestyle for me, right? And so I don't look at anything as a diet. I look at my lifestyle as if I was a diabetic. Diabetics don't, take the option to take insulin or to take care of their health, even if they're on vacation. So when I'm on vacation, I don't go, oh, I'm off vacation. Let me do this. No, this is my lifestyle. This is what I committed myself to. This is what I promised God that I would do. And I've just found a way to make it work for myself where I'm not eating salads and fried chicken every day, right? I'm eating the foods I love eating, and I've just taken it as a lifestyle. It's part of who I am for the rest of my life.
And that's beautiful.
Mhm.
I love your story, Unique. I love that you came in, you were vulnerable, you invited us into your story, and I know that it's going to bless so many people who are listening right now. Unique,
Thank you.
do you have a book? So
Mhm.
tell us where to find your book. Tell us where
Mhm.
we can run over there and follow you. Maybe
For sure.
tap in and for some inspiration.
For sure. So I do have an Instagram, Health is Wealth 2029.
Yeah.
And also my book is 1981. It's poetry's letters. You can find it on Instagram. I'm sorry, I was gonna say Instagram. It's on Amazon. You can find it on Amazon. I am working on a cookbook as well. So my whole movement is called Massive Shift. MassiveShift.fit will be the portal that I am actually in the process of creating. And so I have a cookbook called Don't Starve. It's quality eating, right? And so all of my recipes I've been playing with and all of my recipes I've been testing out on people. I do have two clients. Actually, my friend Christian is now my client. So I'm a wellness chef for her. I'm a certified wellness and weight specialist. So I've got my certification. I am
Woo.
on the track trajectory to become a board certified wellness specialist where I can work alongside doctors and medical professionals. So that's in the making. And so yeah, I
Wow.
have just been doing everything aside from the marketing and the strategy stuff. I've been doing everything wellness. So Massive Shift is the brand that's coming. The cookbook is coming. But you can actually, like I said, follow me on Instagram, Health is Wealth 2029. And I have like I said, a website that is coming, massiveshift.fit. Should be out hopefully in a couple of weeks, where I will be putting everything up there as well. Like all of my uh, coming and goings, my journaling, my recipes, creating content, video content for that.
Wow, I love it. Unique, one act of obedience, and look at all the revenues and avenues of income and businesses that you are now pursuing,
Mhm.
and you look good doing it. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
Uh, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put all of your information in the description below. By the time you said your website and everything will be available within the next couple weeks, so it will be out. And guys, I want you to run over there. And I want you to subscribe. I want you to follow Unique. Pick her brain. She is resilient. She has a beautiful story, and I know that it's going to bless so many people. Unique. Before I let you out of here, can you leave us with something to hold on to?
For sure. I will leave you with this. It's one of my favorite quotes. I think it's unknown, but it's many people ask why. I ask why not.
Mm. Amen.
And that's
That
related to everything that's going on in their life. They'll ask why. And I say why
yeah.
not. Mhm.
Um, I love it. And that is a good note to leave off on. Thank you so much, Unique, for coming and blessing us today at the well. I really appreciate you.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate you.
Of course. All right, ladies, I want you to make sure that you hit that subscribe button. I want to make sure that you go ahead and you follow us on social media, follow Unique. Again, all of our information is in the description below. If you have not already followed us or downloaded our app on Roku, go ahead and do that now at Woman Witness TV. And perhaps you were chosen for such a time as this to write, to tell your story, your truth. Until next time, bye, y'all.